There are exactly three things I like in life: easy videos, tier lists, and TV shows. And hey, what do you know, that's exactly what we're doing today. So because you apes seem to love Transformers videos, even willing to sit through an 8-minute long Fortnite video, I think we should do a tier list on the Transformers shows. About 6 months ago, I did a movie tier list, something which I can tell you all enjoyed. Think of this as part 2, but before we begin, I have an Instagram. I want you to go follow that Instagram, and to get you to, here's a PSA. For every 1 follower my Instagram gets, a low-income family will be lifted into the middle class. But for every follower my Instagram does not get, a small, low-income family is shot out of an airlock. In today's tier list, we're going to be splitting it into 7 tiers, S through F, as per usual, but because I don't want to suffer the effects of brain rot, we're going to have a tier for the shows I haven't watched. When I say the words War for Cybertron, your heart must fill with joy, which is what happened to my heart as my head filled with thoughts that maybe we are getting an official ending to the Fall of Cybertron story. The 2 games might finally have a conclusion and finally get an ending. What the fuck is a dark spot? But as the figures dropped with new designs, my heart sunk to the depths of the Mariana Trench. I mean, the fuck are these character designs? They're not good, but they're not really that bad. I just don't find them that interesting. Sure, the battle damage looks cool, but if the show is set on Cybertron, then why do half of them turn into Earth vehicles? It was pretty clear at this point that this War for Cybertron wasn't the same War for Cybertron, whether it be the remixed G1 designs or the added title of Siege. The show itself is an anime, not a real surprise given the franchise's roots in the country of Japan, not to mention animes I've worked in the past with the Unicron trilogy. The show itself is split into 3 chapters: Siege, Earthrise and Kingdom, each varying in quality and themes. One thing I'll give the show is its aesthetic. Cybertron looks cold and alien, with characters either sharing body types or looking identical to the real-life action figures. The animation is pretty decent, with the sound design making every movement feel light or heavy. The voice work, however, doesn't always hit. The story is basically, due to Optimus Prime's stubbornness, the war dragged on past the point of return. So, in a last-ditch effort, they shoot the EarthSpark through a space bridge, only to realise how bad of an idea that really was. This starts a race to find the EarthSpark. In their travels, Optimus runs into the Quintessons, Scorponok, and the Dead Universe, eventually ending up on Earth with the Maximals midway through their conflict with the Predacons. After finding the EarthSpark, they face off against an evil Optimus Prime, eventually reviving the planet. The show itself is anything but simple with the plot. They have loose ends all over the place. Part 2, EarthSpark, has a really interesting plotline with Elita 1 and her band of Autobots stuck on Cybertron as they put up one last fight against Shockwave, and during the final fight we pan back to Optimus and we don't ever find out what happens until Part 3, Kingdom, where it turns out Nemesis Prime killed them all off screen. Amazing. But because the show is somewhat interesting, I'm putting Siege in B, Earthrise in C, and Kingdom in B. EarthSpark is the most recent show and was made by Nickelodeon, who made the 2012 TMNT, so maybe the show can be another banger. Yeah, Earthrise is not good. It's hard to say what in specific, but I'm going to try. The show is slower than an A24 film. For every 4 filler episodes, we get a 48-minute long banger. The main cast bore me into a coma, with every interesting episode either going nowhere or is massively undercooked. Take Soundwave. When he's introduced, it's shown he has outgrown his love for Megatron, who at this point in the show has betrayed the Decepticons in favour of the Autobots, a plotline inspired by IDW Comics. But in doing so, this helps create a police state for the cons, causing most of them to be imprisoned in camps, with the ones who stayed free being hunted down either by humans or Autobots. Soundwave intentionally gets captured so he can stage a breakout, which is hyped up for a couple of episodes, but when it does happen, it's the definition of underwhelming. The best character in the entire show is fucking Bumblebee, who actually goes through development, but the show is still young and usually the first season of a Transformers show is slow and boring, so let's give it some time. D tier. S tier. Why? Because the show is amazing. We don't see the conflict between the Autobots and Decepticons. In fact, the majority of the first season shows the main cast of characters as superheroes stranded on Earth as they defend their EarthSpark, with only Prowl and Ratchet having been online during the war. The main cast of characters was amazing, by the way, with a young by-the-books Optimus Prime leading a space bridge repair crew full of outcasts as they stumble upon the life-giving EarthSpark. Bulkhead, the kind-hearted bot cursed with a big body who ironically knows more about space bridge technology than any other Cybertronian. Prowl, the cyber ninja, who left his master on a quest to find himself only to return a broken failure. Ratchet, a veteran haunted by the ghosts of his failures and crimes during the war. And Bumblebee, who made his return to TV screens after nearly 20 years of hiatus, with only one appearance before in the 2007 movie. The show itself was drastically different, with it taking aspects from both Western and Eastern versions of the franchise. For example, Japan influenced the ranking system, with the title of Prime being a simple military title that many bots had, while the rank of Magnus was reserved for the true leader of the Autobots. And the way the Autobots functioned in the show was different from the rest. While more modern shows present the war as being over, they didn't do it as well as animated, which presents the Autobots not as peacekeepers, but instead a fully functioning government. You see, traditionally the Autobots have always been cars and trucks, with Decepticons being jets, planes and helicopters, and well, everything else like boomboxes and cameras, with the idea recently being shown that the Autobots were comprised of data clerks and politicians, and a couple of police officers. While the Decepticons were made up of miners, construction bots, gladiators and soldiers, with there being a few exceptions on either side of course. Which explains why in some continuities the Autobots are shown as either struggling to win the war, while in some they're shown as a resistance. But in animated, the tables are turned. Instead, the Decepticons are the resistance, who were broken and shattered into resistance cells across the universe, with the Autobots falling into a system of naive functionalism. With its unique look and care for characters, it gets a solid spot on S tier. Generation 1, the birthplace of so much. Now, no matter what I say in this mini review, don't get me wrong, I love the show, even at some of its weak points. But I gotta give it A tier, bro. I gotta do it. Now, I can already smell the grease from the Reddit mods down below, commenting saying that A tier is a crime for such a specimen, and I should be thrown into the same car park where they found Richard III. But you gotta understand, this show can be dog ass sometimes. I mean, the animation quality at times has aged like donkey sweat. Season 3 alone is labelled as a form of torture on the Geneva Convention. I love seasons 1 and 2, but they are very dated and are so obviously extended advertisements. Not to mention the show's many problems from Jetfire, or the fact that characters randomly appear like it's an episode of Rick and Morty. The show is aged, and I don't think we should let nostalgia blind us. You can't judge a show based off its fans, but fuck it, I'm gonna. The G1 fans are the definition of gatekeepers. In fact, they don't own the gate, they own the fucking road leading to the gate. No matter how good modern Transformers shows can be, you still have a group of fans who complain saying that Megatron should be a gun, despite the fact he's been a fucking jet or tank for about 20 years! Megatron being a gun, it's so lame, you're more likely to see Buggy2988 doing something positive than see Megatron's gun form do something interesting. I can only think of 2 times I can remember Megatron changing forms. The comic where he's stuck in gun mode, and in the movie where he no-diffs the entire crew. And that's the problem with gun mode Megs. It limits how often he can change forms. But if he's something more modern, he can change forms as often as everybody else. And point 2, the designs. Don't get me wrong, I love the G1 character designs, but I think some of them should definitely stay in the past. 2 examples that I can think of are Soundwave and Bumblebee, whose live-action designs clear the G1 versions, and not to mention Soundwave's more recent appearances. Beast Wars is a hard decision, because personally I've never watched past the first season. Don't get me wrong, I've tried. The characters are fun, the story's fun, but the animation... You know, hey, it's all my personal opinion, so feel free to rant in the comments down below. C tier. Beast Machines, D tier. Do I really need to explain? Transformers motherfucking Prime, baby. Now this is the shit. What can't I say about this show? The animation, goated. The story, goated. The characters, goated. And aside from animated characters, I don't find myself loading a shotgun when the humans are on screen. Why? Because they got Ernie Hudson on this show. Oh shit! Not to mention they fucking kill Rock. Seriously, bro, this show gives 0 fucks. I mean, this show, my god, to show how evil one of the Decepticons are, they actually have her dissect one of the others, not to mention the zombie episode. S tier. Robots in Disguise, 2016. D tier. Apart from the last season, that's C tier. Robots in Disguise 2001. This might cause some anger amongst the fans, but F tier. This show is trash. There's no real plot for like 20 episodes. The episodes are too short. The only good part of the show is unironically the shark that does poetry. Armada. Armada is a great show and makes some positive changes as well as setting up the Unicron trilogy. The characters go through real change, with Starscream going through a similar transformation as Dinobot from Beast Wars. The plot was interesting, with there being actual stakes, the humans were decently written, their connections to the Autobots have impact, the plot twists aren't predictable, and honestly the show is really well written. I haven't seen much of the later half of the show, so for now, I'm going to drop it in C tier. The bad ones. Now Armada belongs in C tier, but its sequels don't. In fact, they're so bad, I refuse to watch them. Bro, these are so fucking bad. I mean, look at this shit. Cyberverse. Cyberverse for me falls into a weird space. I remember the first season where they were looking for the Ark, and it was nice having a decent version of Windblade. The roster of characters was amazing, with D-list characters like Rack and Ruin making an appearance, but I honestly couldn't get into the show, and most of the main cast appears in flashbacks. I like the direction they took Grimlock in, but the show kind of lost me around the season 2 mark, and in my personal opinion, C tier. Machinima. Finally, we've reached the last show on the list, the Machinima series, which you can only find on YouTube. And if that wasn't bad enough, most of the show has been privated. These shows are so bad for a start, like, the episodes are 30 seconds long. Not to mention, they fumble the characters so bad. They did my boy Rodimus so dirty. They even got the IDW version of The Fallen, voiced by Mark Hamill, but not even that could save the show from F tier. The fact that they were able to make a toy line out of this baffles me. The characters, bland. The plot, uninteresting. F tier. And, well, those were my respective rankings for the Transformers show. Feel free to argue down in the comments, and, as always, till next time.